first pick in the 2023 NFL Draft.
Good evening and welcome back. Thank you for joining us as we return to bring you all things football all the time. I am your personal draft assistant, Dr. Brad.
I am your personal draft assistant, Dr. Kyle.
Now, Dr. Kyle, we have some patients that need to be seen urgently again. I am prepping the draft board as we speak. Which patient do we have first?
So this patient hasn't been healthy since 1984. Especially at the quarterback position. I mean, it's so bad they even have a new theme song for Tua written by the Commodores. You're once, twice, three times concussed. So, in short, the Dolphins have a quarterback issue. They have a massive issue.
That is horrible, especially when his top wide receiver's best catch this season was some OnlyFans girl's melons. Yikes. Let's get him inside, Kyle.
All right, so our Dolphins, they don't have much money to work with. We probably can't operate on them very long. They have about $1 million in cap space. Their three biggest needs are safety, D-tackle, offensive guard.
Sure.
So we have a recovery plan for the Dolphins.
We sure do. What do you have?
So at 13, I have them taking Armand Membu, the tackle/guard out of Missouri. I think he can play both tackle and guard. Has sizable arms, has good enough size on his arms, good length, pretty agile. For a big guy, he can move. And for the Dolphins, for a team that likes to run a lot of stretch plays, a lot of deep shots, they really like to be active, right? I mean, they really like to move, get Tua on the move a lot, because if he stays in the pocket,
he's going to get crushed.
He gets concussed. So athletic tackles, athletic guards, that's the MO for the Dolphins. And their offensive line is pretty horrible. Teron Armstead's probably going to retire. If you remember Patrick Paul, remember him? We liked him. He's a backup.
Yes.
I don't know how he's doing. I should look into that. But Isaiah Wynn starting, Aaron Brewer, Robert Jones, it's pretty mediocre. At 48, I have him getting TJ Sanders, the D tackle. Calais Campbell's probably going to retire. Zach Sealer is very good for them, but they could use another interior D lineman after Christian Wilkins left. And then at 98, let's go for another athletic freak at tackle. That's Charles Grant out of William and Mary. We haven't talked about him quite yet, but he's a small school guy, about 6'4", 300 pounds. You know, we're not really sure how those small guys always transition, but if you have a good offensive line coach and the right system, if you give him a year to develop, he's a very athletic swing tackle that could help them in the future.
Sure. And I live by the thought process that if you can ball, you can ball. I don't care where you're balling at. So my draft recovery plan, Kelvin Banks. Look, that whole O-line is a little suspect. Kelvin Banks can play guard, tackle, didn't really matter. Every single edge rusher they have is dead or dying, which is sad because Chop Robinson, I like Chop Robinson.
Yeah, he's the only one that's healthy as of right.
Exactly, but it's the same problem with Micah Parsons. He can't do it by himself.
Right.
So I think for as much talent as they have in that room, it might be good to add somebody else that's highly explosive, big game ability. I like Jack Sawyer out of Ohio State there at 48. And then I'm digging on some nostalgia here. I'm sure you can see that here at 98. There was another safety that played really well from Alabama that was a bit gritty, a little tough. Not the same player at all, but if they like that kind of build, if I'm thinking correctly, Javon Holland probably will not come back. He needs a payday. He's probably out of there.
He's going to get paid. That's going to be difficult to do. Yeah.
And they're going to need a gritty ball hawk. And that's, Malachi Moore has some issues, but, if you can get him to put his nose to the grind, then I think this might be a steal for them in 98.
Yeah. And surprisingly, the Dolphins defense was decent last year. I say that surprisingly because, when Vic Fangio goes from the Dolphins to the Eagles and absolutely kills it with the Eagles, you're like, well, that means, Dolphins probably suck. Well, they didn't. And their pass rushers, need to get healthy. But I think if they can retool along the interior D line, get another safety. I mean, you still have Jalen Ramsey. I still think he locks down one side of the field. So, if they follow this draft plan, and let's see what we can do for their supplements. What supplements do they need?
For sure.
So I have them taking Fred Johnson, tackle from the Eagles. I mentioned the Eagles, 6'8", probably. He's a tall dude. Listen, if Teron Armstead is going to retire, looks like he is, you need depth, right? Fred Johnson stepped in for a few games with the Eagles, shut down Trey Hendrickson, who's going to get a bag this offseason. That's hard to do. So at least he can play. It's bad. Again, I always say this. I said this the last podcast. It's always bad when you have backups that are like coming off the practice squad and starting. You can't have that with Tua there. Like that's not happening.
That's how you die.
Yeah, that's how you die. Marcus Williams, safety. Now I know you're a Ravens fan. Marcus Williams was a massive signing a couple of years ago and just did not live up.
A couple of years ago, yeah.
So and the Ravens really don't tend to do that. They're not the type of franchise to go all out in free agency. And I think when these moves happen, they're like, yep, we're just going to stick with the draft. And that's smart.
Yeah.
But Marcus Williams, maybe he can bounce back with the Dolphins in a different situation. Again, when he was healthy and when he was productive, he was that ball hawking safety, right? So if you're looking for that, Jordan Poyer is older as well. Maybe Marcus Williams on the cheap because, again, $1 million, not much money to play with. And then lastly, I have Neville. No, not that Neville. You silly muggle. Neville Gallimore, D-tackle, played for the Cowboys a little bit, and this last year played for the Rams. Just another interior defensive lineman who can cause some havoc since Calais Campbell's, dead. No, not dead. He's old. When's he gonna retire? He's old. So just another guy in the interior.
For sure. I like it. That will be pretty much everything that we can do for the Dolphins for now. Kyle, I'm concerned for our next patient because they need to work on their stamina. Halfway through one game, their starting quarterback said he was too tired. That's concerning. You know who they are. Who is our next patient?
The Indianapolis Colts. Yeah, that situation was just a little. It has me weary for their future, to be honest, because it wasn't just like, oh, it happened. Some pundits, some goobers like us were like, oh, Richardson, what are you doing? No, guys like Pat McAfee, other NFL players came out and said how stupid, how dumb, horrible it was. So that has me concerned. So their three biggest needs beyond getting him in shape are tight end, interior O-line, and corner.
Sure.
And they have about $35 million to work with, so a lot of money to work with in free agency. Here is my draft recovery plan for them at 14, Tyler Warren. Listen, it's mocked everywhere. You look at every mock on the internet, it's Tyler Warren. Why? Because he can do it all.
Yeah.
The Colts want to run the ball, right? I mean, with Richardson, with Taylor, with a good offensive line, you want to run the ball and then use your weapons that you have. Josh Downs down the field, Adonai Mitchell down the field. Like they have actually quite a bit of skill there. It's surprising. Their offense wasn't as good. So if Richardson cannot sling it like you want him to, you want to rely on the ground game. You want to give him some easy throws. You get that with Tyler Warren. He can block his butt off and he can catch the ball. At 45, Xavier Watts, a leader for Notre Dame. He needs to be that for the Colts on the back end. A do-it-all, but also kind of a downhill sort of safety. And then at 80, a Johnny Cornelius, a guy who was at a small school, and he transferred to Oregon, because Oregon gives everybody money. And then he still needs to work on some development. He could play tackle. I'm sure he could play guard too. Quentin Nelson's still there. Bernard Raymond's still there. Blake Freeland. Braden Smith. Will Fries is a free agent, I believe. So that's kind of why I have him penciled in there. If they want to move Braden Smith around, they can do that with this pick.
For sure. It's eerie sometimes. I want everybody to know this. Kyle and I do not look at each other's mocks before we mock with each other. And it's just creepy sometimes that you and I are like, okay, this is the same genre. I just like a little bit of a different flavor and about how this falls out. It also doesn't help that I think that you did this the way I did, where I picked just the teams that we're going to talk about and then let the computer just mock the rest of it, which sometimes is good, sometimes is ugh. But yeah, Tyler Warren, it should be what they're looking at. And I'll use the Raiders as a good example of this. We all thought, oh my God, you're stupid. You just drafted Michael Mayer. Now you've got Brock Bowers. Like, why didn't you just trade back? And then we saw what Brock Bowers did with Gardner Minshew, with Aiden O'Connell. Like, he's not working with premier quarterbacks. And look what the dude did as a rookie. Warren is that same kind of flexible, can play anywhere on the field, just stretches the game. And it's like what you said, they want to run the ball. And if you're going to make them run, you need to have a solid safety net for when Richardson does go past. And I think you and I have said this for, it'll be 6 years now come March. Young quarterbacks need a good tight end. It is a good safety net for them and their development as they continue, because you're right. He's got Adonai Mitchell. He's got Michael Pittman. Like, there is no reason he shouldn't be getting the ball out. And a lot of that was dropped balls by the receivers last year. Tyler Warren doesn't really do that. Like, he is I will go up there and get it. I will run through who I need to run through. We're going to get this first down. And that's the mentality the Colts need to have. So for those that kind of question us of like, well, this is kind of a throwaway pick. Like, shouldn't they go corner? Like, there's other needs. You're right. There are other needs for sure. But Tyler Warren, like, forces defenses to play the Colts honestly, because now you got to deal with Tyler Warren. Now you get to deal with Jonathan Taylor. Now you get to deal with hopefully a healthy Anthony Richardson. Now you got to deal with Pittman. Oh yeah, and if you cover Pittman, now we've got A.D. Mitchell here in the slot. Like, that's scary. That's a scary offense on paper.
I think too, like what you're saying, to go piggyback off that really quick, is that like he was the running backs were good at Penn State, but he was the identity of that offense. Like,
Everything.
He was everything. So for the Colts, you want some swagger, you want some identity.
Yeah.
Dallas Clark wore number 44 for the Colts, right? Tyler Warren was 44 with Penn State. So
yeah.
That's not really anything, but it's a cool little nugget. But to provide the energy, provide some juice, like Tyler Warren does that, and he's really good, and he's really smart. They need all of that on that offense, because Richardson right now, listen, if you can't get it to your receivers, well, then you're going to have to run the ball and kill yourself, because, that's how it is. Josh Allen, too, early in his career, they relied on his legs a lot. That's what they do with these quarterbacks that cannot throw the ball. They have to run. Even with Jalen Hurts, who's a really good quarterback, right? I mean, at times they could not pass the ball. What do they have to do? Rely on Saquon Barkley of their offensive line and their blocking tight end, Dallas Goedert. So Shane Steichen, similar kind of coach, right? He coached for the Eagles. You want that tight end who can do it all. Okay, sorry, 45 for you. Who do you got?
No, you're fine. I'm trying to find it. My last note on here, because you said it and it's kicked off a whole thing for me. 45 is Nick Emenwari. I don't think he's going to make it to 45. He's probably going to be gone long before that. But nice, flexible guy, big body.
Looks like a Metcalf out there, dude.
Yes, as a safety,
safety. It's insane.
And I think that's what the Colts need more of, is just some of these athletic freaks. And that's why Warren, that's why Nick Emenwari. My last point with Tyler Warren is you hit the nail on the head. Dallas Clark, Peyton Manning. Then you go back and Andrew Luck and I can picture him, but Kobe Fleener. Like, this is historical for the Colts. You got a good quarterback. And the good quarterback thrives when you got a good tight end. And you know what? Mo Alley-Cox is not keeping defenders up at night. I'm sorry. I like the guy. Great story, but
he's keeping fantasy football managers up at night.
Alive. Yeah. Anyways, Emenwari, they really need to work on the pass defense, especially when you should be winning that division every year. I'm sorry. The Titans suck. Stroud finally showed some holes in his game.
Suck too.
I don't understand why they don't run the table every year with everything they have on their offense. Anyways, third point here at 80, Seth McLaughlin. I was kind of mad that he left, sort of, but also he was some of his late game snaps that he did in the back half of the season 2 years ago with Alabama was rough. I wasn't sure where he would land. And then he went to Ohio State, which is a well-oiled machine, and the offense is great. And then he looked like way up there. And look, Ryan Kelly's a great story. But Ryan Kelly is not. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, Seth McLaughlin. I'm going to stay there because I could do another 10 minutes just on that.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely provides a lot of depth to that team. Very similar size to Ryan Kelly.
Yeah.
He said Alabama, Ohio State, had some injuries. He won the Remington this year. So there's that. That's pretty good. So if you're looking for a new center, that'd be the way to go. Okay, some supplements here that we have. So here's my thinking. Mr. Lou from the Bengals, they got rid of him. He went to the Colts. So I'm going to get you some former Bengals players. Akeem Davis-Gaither at linebacker. There's a glaring need at linebacker for the Colts as well. Akeem Davis-Gaither was a former third-round pick, I believe, out of Appalachian State. He could provide some instant impact for them. Michael Jackson Sr., not that Michael Jackson, R.I.P. You're going to write something and I'll say here. I was going to say he or do something like that. A corner from the Panthers played a lot of ball this year and pretty good size, 6'1", 200. Again, need a corner. And then if they could, I would trade for Trey Hendrickson. They have a need at defensive end. They have Kwity Paye, and Kwity Paye has been okay. He's been okay. But Samson Ebicam on the other side, not really doing it for me.
You know who else they have, Kyle?
Who's that?
They have Adetomiwa Adebawore.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that. What's he doing? Probably nothing. That's kind of sad.
No.
Not doing much either. They moved him to D tackle. There you go. So pass rush, big need. Hendrickson, fill in that need. Akeem Davis-Gaither as well. They have money to spend, so that's why I'm thinking, hey, go ahead, trade for Hendrickson, pay him. Boom, instant impact. Played for his D coordinator, playing for him again. Could be a good offseason.
Yeah. Well, this team shouldn't have been here anyways. Next.
Well, this patient is in dire need of a life-saving operation. They've been nearly dead for decades. Performing on them is risky. However, there's only a 28-3 chance that they will pull through. And that's your Atlanta Falcons. Negative $4 million in cap space. I did want to tangent a little bit quickly.
Go ahead.
There's been a lot of tush-push stuff recently at the combine. It's been pissing me off. Raheem Morris doesn't like it. I don't really listen to Raheem Morris because that dude doesn't even know when to use timeout. So I'm not going to listen to Raheem Morris. Sorry, Jay. I know you're a Falcons fan, but Raheem Morris needs to get in check. Three biggest needs for your Atlanta Falcons are edge, safety, and corner. You can make a fourth need, and that need is to get rid of Kirk Cousins. So here is my draft recovery plan for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep, I got you. Go ahead.
So their first two picks, I have them taking Mike Green, edge out of Marshall at 15. Man, I love what I saw from him. He's a little bit of an unknown. A lot of mocks, maybe a month ago had him second round, end of the first round. I think he's going to shoot up all the way to 15 if some of his cases get cleared. I know there's some rumblings out there about some sexual assault cases, like 2 of them. And so what I told other people is that, if it's once, sometimes teams excuse it. If it's a pattern of behavior,
Justin Tucker.
Yeah, guys like that, Sean Watson. If there's a pattern of behavior, you might fall. So we'll check that out. And then Azariah Thomas, corner out of Florida State, a long, physical, athletic, instinctive corner, and they could definitely use that opposite of AJ Terrell.
Yeah. Mike Green. I'm telling you, Mike Green, you and I think similarly when it comes to edge rushers. And if he's there at 15, great. Do I think he'll be there at 15? No, I don't. only because he has the potential to be better than Michael Williams. He has the potential to be better than Shamar Stewart. Like all these, like there's too many questions on a bunch of people, but Mike Green did a bunch of stuff for himself at the Super Bowl. He is nasty. And he proved he can do it against like the big boys in D1. And I was like, okay, that usually goes well for you at the combine. He runs a fast 40 time. He might be in the top 12, top 10. Yeah, because you and I both know that the two, you might disagree with me on this, the two most important positions in the game of football right now is quarterback and pass rush. Those are the two most important positions. Sure, yeah, you need an offensive lineman, but an offensive lineman like protects your quarterback. They're not giving you anything that's like tangible. Sacks, on the other hand, yeah, you can see those. That fills seats. So Mike Green for sure. Maxwell Hairston, I like him. He's got a long body. Same with Thomas. I'm just going to say Thomas. I don't know how to say the first name. Sorry. I'll figure it out by combine. But Maxwell Hairston, I like him. He's long. He's lengthy. He's played against a bunch of those SEC dudes that are just freaks at wide receiver and played well enough. And you're right. They need to really address their pass defense if they're going to – and actually their defense in general. Like that's just –
it's sad too because like they have Justin Simmons, right? Yeah. They have Jesse Bates. They have A.J. Terrell. And they have Ebiketie there, Grady Jarrett. But, guys like Grady Jarrett, Onyemata, Judon, they're getting a little bit older, right? And their pass rush has been an issue for a long time. I did see rumblings out there that they have sent all their scouts just for defensive players.
Yeah.
Which is insanely stupid to me because, like, you still have a need at receiver, I think. And your tight end is a bust. So, I still think that's insanely stupid based on how the board falls, but if that's their thinking, that's
I will say at 2, like if they don't go corner, it may not be the end of the world. There's a good amount of them in free agency. Harold Fannin, however, if he's at 46, that might be a really good pick for them too, but it wasn't on my board for this.
Speaking of tight ends. Let's get on to the supplements here. So first, I would trade Kyle Pitts.
Wait,
what?
They're not doing free agency? Are they not covered by cap space insurance?
Oh yeah, they're not covered by cap space. They don't have enough cap space insurance. So we got nothing for them. Yeah. No supplements. Sorry about that. You're gonna have to make some money. Kirky 2 Chainz should be traded. Get rid of him. They said he's a backup. That's a very expensive backup. Kyle Pitts. I would trade, if you could, Kyle Pitts for Jonathan Allen. And for both teams, they need a productive interior defensive lineman. That's Jonathan Allen, right?
How do you sell the Commanders on Kyle Pitts?
I would sell them, hey, you should re-sign Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz doesn't have an athletic bone in his body, but or he doesn't block. But Zach Ertz is one of the best still route running, receiving tight ends in the league.
Kyle Pitts, red zone.
Kyle Pitts, if you can just get on the field, learn from Zach Ertz, you don't even have to block for that Commanders team. Jaden Daniels runs around for 5 freaking hours while attempting a pass because he can do it. So just like be a massive target in the middle of the field, learn from Zach Ertz, and become a productive, just bigger receiver. I think that would be a match made in heaven for the Commanders if they could do that. And then get rid of Jonathan Allen. And lastly, I was talking about that third receiver. Maybe somehow get Keenan Allen if that's possible. So as long as they stick to their prescribed Penix enhancers, I think they'll make it. Next.
Ew, dude, do you smell that?
Yeah, it smells like a Call of Duty all-nighter mixed with Mountain Dew Code Red and a hint of middling quarterback play. Gross.
That was, I know who that is.
That would be your Arizona Cardinals. Yep. Obviously, Kyler Murray jab right there. And they have about $76 million in cap space, so they have a lot. But again, here's my marker for all these teams. Just because you have a lot of money doesn't mean you're going to be good. Use it wisely, please. Their 3 biggest needs are edge, D tackle, and receiver. Yep. And we both have recovery plans for them.
Sure do.
So I have Nick Scorton, the edge from Texas A&M at 16, a former Purdue Boilermaker, then transferred to Texas A&M, was much more productive at Purdue. I think he could provide a solid edge for them, a run-stuffing guy with upside of pass rush. They need a productive, real defensive end. At 47, I think this is maybe a little too early for him, but a guy I think would make sense for the Cardinals. They like speed threat. That's Isaiah Bond. You want a field stretcher with the likes of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison. Both of them are very good. You need a field stretcher. He could be that. And then at 78, I have Joshua Farmer from Florida State at D tackle, a very thickly built D tackle. The Cardinals have a lot of needs along their offensive line and their defensive line. So getting, Nick Scorton and getting Joshua Farmer can definitely replace the likes of, Naquan Jones, Justin Jones, Roy Lopez. If you know who any of these guys are, congratulations, because I don't.
Mm-hmm. Nope, I'm nodding. But you could have said like Michael Jackson Jr. And I said, yeah, I remember him. Great player at Hee Hee University. So my draft plan recovery here. We both thought Texas A&M edge rushers here at 16. The problem is I don't like either of them. But if I'm going to pick a big body boy. Shamar Stewart is 6'6", 291 pounds. That is a freak-a-leak. And their pass rush, I'm trying to remember what their pass rush was ranked. It's in the very, very lower half of the entire NFL. So then at 47, I was like, okay, let's go D tackle here. Kenneth Grant. Some people think Kenneth Grant is better than Mason Graham. I think he might be a little insane in the head. But hey, I can see the appeal of going for a big guy. And that's my first two picks is let's get big, let's get scary on the defensive line because I don't think people are going to take the Cards seriously on defense for the most part. Or in general, really, because they're like the most meh team right now. Like that's why they're drafting at this spot because they're sometimes, oh my God, they're amazing. And then other times, meh. But you can't do that. Like you need to be slamming home runs in the draft. And if there aren't any there, you need to go for an athletic freak. And we've seen that work out for the Eagles, for instance, of going for guys that may have some injury history, going for some guys that may have some character concerns, but they're athletic freaks and they make it work. Speaking of athletic freaks, you and I are also thinking correctly that Marvin Harrison Jr. is a great wide receiver. When your quarterback comes out and says it's not my job to get him the ball, how about it's your job to get anybody the ball? Because poor Trey McBride didn't get a catch until like week 14. That's unacceptable. When you have one of the better like receiving tight ends in the game who should be feasting all game long. So Tez Johnson, you and I both know who Tez Johnson is, kind of makes the most of the situations he's in. And I feel like that would really pair well with Marvin Harrison Jr. because Marv's going to get targeted because of his name. He's going to get targeted. People are going to drape all over him. You need to have another speedy guy that's going to stretch the field. I see that as Tez. You can get him in round 3. Focus on your D-line in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. One of the markers of having a good pass rush is being able to get off the field on third down, and they were one of the worst in getting off the field. I believe 28th in third down percentage. So one of their defensive ends, and I hope I'm seeing this right, they have – remember Zaven Collins? Like he's playing defensive end. Yes. He was a linebacker. So I question their overall depth and talent at that position.
Well, truthfully, when you hang on to Kyler Murray and overpay a quarterback that you could probably get like a comparison to that in the 3rd round of like any NFL draft, you're going to suffer because you're not focusing on your entire team. Yeah, that's just what we're at.
They definitely haven't. So supplements for the Cardinals, like I said, $76 million. I have them taking Levi Onwuzurike, the D tackle from the Lions.
Bless you.
Again, D tackle is a big need. Josh Sweat, he played with Jonathan Gannon with the Eagles, obviously. He's going to get a big payday. I would also throw Milton Williams in there just because of that connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of these guys are definitely going to want big money, and the Cardinals have that. And then lastly, Tevin Jenkins, the guard/tackle from the Bears. Listen, if you can get away from Chicago, I would do that. It's not a terrible move, honestly. I get it. It's a little bit farther, but in terms of getting away from the Bears, that's okay. Will Hernandez is a free agent. Kelvin Beachum, he's not getting any younger. He's 35. So getting a guy that's played both positions could be a good matchup for the Cardinals.
Absolutely. Next.
So this patient starts out healthy every year, somehow manages to get sick. They can't keep chasing all this disappointment. They need to stop burrowing their heads in the sand and pay up for their decent core. And that would be the Cincinnati Bengals, a team that is in desperation to pay both their starting receivers. Not a good place to be in. Their three biggest needs are tackle, tight end, and receiver. So our draft recovery plan here that we have, Walter Nolan, he's been mocked a lot to the Bengals.
Yep.
And with their changing of guard on their defensive coordinator, it's a team that still continues to need to bolster their pass rush. He kind of likens to Geno Atkins, who was a Bengal at one point, like a slasher at D tackle. I think that would make a lot of sense. Wyatt Millum, a do-it-all type of tackle and guard from West Virginia. I think he was a late first-round pick. He was mocked there maybe a couple months ago. Recently, he's been falling down. But for a team who is always in desperation for offensive linemen, just guys who can play. We look at Zach Frazier, who went to the Steelers this last year, and he was one of the best centers in the league already. So maybe I would trust that WVU connection. And then Travion Henderson. I love what Mr. Brown does for the Bengals, Chase Brown, but I still think they could use a every down type of back. I think Henderson could do that. I think that could be a good 1-2 pairing.
Yeah. Travion Henderson reminds me a lot of Aaron Jones too. And I mean, obviously, like Aaron Jones is not the best running back to ever play in the NFL, but he's memorable. He's good. He's a big body dude. So I'm going to be honest with you, man. I don't like that they franchise tag T. Higgins. I don't. And if I'm T. Higgins, that pisses me off. Because if you look at Jamar Chase's numbers without T. Higgins playing, it is apparent that T. Higgins makes a massive difference to that offense. And I think they've fooled around for too long that I'm not certain T. Higgins is going to play nice with them when it comes to contract time, because they've had opportunities to pay him and they just refuse to do it. And if he's out the door, you have two options here. You draft positional need, or you draft talent. You and I have talked about that. Top guy off the board. I'm going to be honest with you, man. Luther Burden is kind of Deebo Samuel-ish in terms of like he's very flexible. You can do a whole lot of stuff with him. Now, I think if he had better quarterback play at Missouri, he would probably be a higher draft pick. But I think people are going to view him for what he is, as a just very flexible, safe wide receiver. And you need that if you're the Bengals, because you're going to waste Burrow's career at this point. And it's so funny that offensive tackle is probably their biggest need walking into this offseason. Kyle, what did we say for our 2020 mock draft? This will be the place where I pause and insert our little thing there before keep going. What did we say when we were talking about the Bengals when they were looking between Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase? What did we say?
Yeah, I mean, we both said Penei Sewell. A lot of people would probably still fight us on that. I mean, I get it. Jamar Chase is one of the best receivers in the league, but Penei Sewell's.
But what have they gotten from it? A Super Bowl trip and disappointment because an offensive tackle would have prevented that last play by Aaron Donald. Anyways, just saying. But yeah, okay. So I'll just go top talent off the board. You don't know if T. Higgins is coming around. You're playing games with the dude. Get a good wide receiver too. Get a good slot threat for Jamar Chase. Follow it up with Donovan Jackson. Look, your O-line is in shambles. I prefer to take the guy that can play tackle and guard and play both kind of well. Be a steal for them at 49, to be honest. And then you and I both agree with the Ohio State pipeline in there with the Bengals, and Denzel Burke is a very good lockdown corner. Kind of need it. Offense, yeah. Strangely enough, offense needs to be their first working spot again.
Yeah.
Like I just whatever. Bookend tackle could have prevented a lot of these problems 5 years ago. But what do we know, Kyle?
Yeah, it's they're going to be kind of in a mess if they don't get this figured out, because once you tag someone, you're kind of locked. So my supplements for them. So let's say they don't get T. Higgins, then move your money elsewhere, right? Or they trade T. Higgins. Move your money elsewhere. Don't overpay for another receiver. Take that money, invest it into Trey Smith. Get one of the best young guards in the league.
Don't do the Christian Kirk thing. Basically, is what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. Like you don't have to. Well, we need this guy for Jamar. There's good receivers in the draft, right? Like that's what I'm saying. And Joe Burrow is that good, so you don't have to go, overpay for someone. Invest into Trey Smith. Next, I choose you, Charles Darius Ward. Now I don't even know how to pronounce his actual name. What is his actual name?
I don't know. That's why I wrote what I did.
But they, like you said, with Denzel Burke, they need another corner.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Hilton as nickel, he might be back, he might not. Cam Taylor-Britt's there. Dax Hill, they had him playing corner a little bit, but I think he's maybe more of a safety. Yep. So they definitely have a need at corner. And then lastly, do everything in your power to keep T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. If it's possible, do it. Joe Burrow says it is. He's not a cap guy, but he's your starting quarterback. So if it's possible, do it.
For sure. Yep. Well, I got nothing clever here for our next guy. Seahawks country. Let's ride.
Seattle Seahawks, they have about -$6 million in cap space. Yikes. Their three biggest needs are guard, quarterback, and linebacker. No, I don't have them taking a quarterback, or do I? What are my plans for them? I don't. Okay. I believe in some other mocks that I did just on my own. I think I did end up taking a quarterback, but for this one, I had them taking Josh Simmons, a tackle from Ohio State. Yep. If his medical's clear, he definitely should be a top 15 pick.
Sure.
Donovan Ezeraku at 50, the edge from Boston College. I love this guy. I actually don't think he will last that long. They have a big need at defensive end, outside linebacker.
6'2", 247, not bad.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little smaller, no doubt, but in the mold of a guy who they already have, Uchenna Nwosu, who's 6'2", 251. That's their kind of guy. And then lastly, I have Sebastian Castro, the other white secondary player from Iowa. And don't be fooled by this guy just because he's white, just like Cooper DeJean. This guy can really, really ball, and they do have a decent need at safety. Kobe Bryant, the other Kobe Bryant. There's three Kobe Bryants that I could be talking about right now. He's playing safety, but I thought he was more of a corner. And Julian Love is not bad, but he's kind of been around for a little bit.
Yeah.
Had a pretty good year, though. So I think if they could use that, a strong safety there in replacement of Kobe Bryant, he could do that.
For sure. Again, you and I think very similarly. Armand Mimbu out of Missouri, their tackle. I mean, how many times have we mocked tackles to the Seahawks over the last 3 years? Just do it. Just find somebody. 50, Landon Jackson, the edge out of Arkansas. I do want his size compared to.
He's
I picked him because he's 6'7", 280. I'm like, he's a monster. That's what I thought that was. Yep. Look, you're playing against the Rams. We should do a whole different segment on how the Rams offseason is going. But you're playing in a fairly competitive division. The Cards are going to get it together eventually. The Rams are going to get it together. You need to be able to go to the quarterback, because we don't know how much longer the magical train that is Geno Smith is going to last, because no one expected Geno Smith to perform like that. And honestly, at 82, let me just put it this way. Okay. Do I think Will Howard is one of the best quarterbacks in the draft? No. Do I think Will Howard did what a lot of people probably would have done in Ohio State's system that they had this year? Absolutely. However, he has a great knack of ball placement. He's got that, and he's just a little bit under on the arm, but I'd rather take the accuracy there instead of the arm and just get a stopgap guy because look, there's nobody they're going to be in love with in free agency. Fields, nah. Fields is probably going to go to the Jets or Steelers. Jets, like you said, makes sense. They passed on him in 2021. Get a chance to get him on the cheap, see what they can do with him. Makes sense. Steelers, you're not going to keep Russell Wilson. Let's be honest. Just go ahead and take Fields back. So Will Howard, I think he's a good game manager. Not quite Brock Purdy, but he's got some things that he just does well, knows how to get the ball out, senses pressure well. And honestly, Geno's kind of the same way. Geno doesn't do anything sexy. Like he's just really good at getting the ball where he needs to get the ball. And I think if they want someone on the cheap, if Geno decides to hang it up soon, Will Howard would be a good stopgap until they figure out what they want to do long term.
Yeah, I mean, looking at it again, just looking at the Seahawks overall construction, they do have some talented players on defense. I just think they're missing that along their offensive line. I think they're missing that at tight end. I think they could be missing that at quarterback too. So, we'll definitely keep looking into that. I do have some recommended supplements for them. Again, not much money. So these guys are a little bit on the cheap. Will Hernandez at guard, guy that's played a lot of football. A guy that can kind of stay out west for you, pencil in at guard. Again, depth. That offensive line is needed. Shaq Thompson, who just got cut from the Panthers. But if you look at your inside linebackers, you have Tyrese Knight and then Ernest Jones Jr. I think he's a free agent as well. So you could use an inside linebacker there. I think Shaq Thompson could definitely fill that. And then lastly, I have who do I have? All right, Maurice Hurst, D-tackle, who played for the Browns recently. We know he had that heart issue, but he's definitely overcome that, and he's kind of a slasher type of D-tackle. And I'm looking at it right now. You have Jadeveon Clowney right there instead of Shaq Thompson.
Well, that's what came up when I looked up Shaq Thompson.
That's okay. They could use him too. But no, again, they have like negative $6 million. So when we do these exercises and a team doesn't have much money, I'm not going to put out a top 5, top 10, free agent for their recommended supplements because that's just not very likely. So I think that is the end of the procedures. What's that?
Did I get bamboozled?
Did you get bamboozled?
I don't know how. Okay, whatever. Yep, that's the end of our procedures. So listen. Thanks for listening to us. You can catch us on Spotify. We're keeping up with that now. We'll be back with you next Wednesday. We're going to discuss combine performances, guys that are on the rise. I also will be putting out a schedule of what we're going to do over the next couple of weeks, when to look for mock drafts from us, when to get your bits and pieces of things to watch out for. I will make a video version of that for those of you that listen to us digitally. Those of you that watch us via YouTube don't see our Facebook page. But all that, guys, thanks for being here as usual. We appreciate your support so much, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.